you have a choice to just read through, i.e. read it as if you're not stopping at that end of verse marker or number, or you can stop. So in this case, if we take this, let's presume we're going to read straight through. So where that verse number 1 sign is, just pretend it's not even there. We're going to read straight through it. So this would be al-qari'atu, mal-qari'ah. Okay, so you would read the dhamma on the ta marbuta. Okay, now there's a separate lesson which will cover whenever you try to stop at a sentence or a stop or pause mark, what you read on the actual words. So here we just want to see that what the options are, not exactly how to read it. So again, if I carry on through this, it would be al-qari'atu mal-qari'ah. Okay, so you would read that first ta marbuta with the dhamma, so you'd say tu and then carry on. Now if you decided to stop, you would effectively, and again this will be covered in another lesson, you would read that ta marbuta as if it's a ha sakin. So you would have to read that first line as al-qari'ah, mal-qari'ah. Okay, so there's a slight difference. So reading through a line is different than if you stop on it, and that's without any other special pause or stop characters. That's just a normal end of line marker. Okay, now we'll look at the small meme. So again, we said for this small meme, which is like a meme with its tail cut in half, you've got must stop, otherwise if you continue you will distort the meaning of the verse. So this is a very important one. So let's look at an example. So this is from the second surah, surah number 2, verse number 26. And we have here, if I just read it without the stop, مَثَلًا يُضِلُّ. Okay, and then we have this little meme. So because we've got this small meme here, it means you must stop. So this actually will be read as مَثَلًا, then a stop, يُضِلُّ. Okay, so mathala, and again there's a special rule to how you read the fatatain when you stop, and we'll cover that in another lesson. Main thing there is you have to stop. You haven't got a choice there, you must stop. Now just going to bring up on the left hand side here just to note, and we covered this when we did the rules of iqlab. So this is where the nun sakin sound is being changed into a meme sound, and they draw in the meme. We've covered all this before. However, notice that meme has got the normal meme character. It's got a long tail. So you have to be careful not to confuse that with the meme, which is being used to indicate a compulsory stop. The next one, the lam alif sign, must not stop or pause on the word. So this means you must carry on. So another example is surah number 2, verse 25. So we have the small lam alif, and this just means you have to read completely through. You cannot stop on where we have the qon, the qaf with the fatatain. You cannot stop there. Okay, so you'd have to read through this. So that would be thamaratir rizqan qalu. Okay, so you'd have to read straight through that. You cannot go thamaratir rizqan qalu. You cannot do that. Okay, the color coding there is, we would have covered that again in a previous lesson, is the ikhfa. Okay, so the hiding of the noon sound. Then we have the small jim sound, sorry, the small jim symbol. Allowed to stop on a word, or you can continue. There's no preference given to stopping or continuing. Example of this is Surah 110, verse number 3. So here we have the little jim, and if we were to stop, we would read this as wastaghfir innahu. Okay, or if you continue, you'd go wastaghfirhu innahu. You've got the choice. You go either way, it doesn't matter. Okay, the next one, the sign of the Sad, Lam and the Ya looking character. Allowed to stop, but it is better to continue. So really you should continue through this. So example of this is Surah 104 verse 4. So better to continue here. Okay, so what we do is we read it as Kalla la yunbadanna. So read straight through. Okay, the next one then is the sign with the Qaf, Lam and the Ya. Better to stop, but you can continue. So example of this one is Surah number 2 verse 13. Okay, and this is better to stop. So again, this would be Amana Sufaha, and they'll stop there and then they'll read the next bit. Now the small scene sign. So we've got here, you must make a pause for a second or so without taking a breath. So it's going to be a very short pause. Not to be confused with the scene placed over or under the sword. I'll explain that in a minute. So here's the example of the scene. So we've got Surah 83 verse 14. Now this has actually got two stop signs, and the little scene here is indicating after the word bal you must take a pause, but you can't take a breath. Okay, so if we read the first one, and we'll read through the Sad, Lam, Ya sign, the first one, this would be Kalla bal rana. Okay, so you say bal, Kalla bal rana, and all you've got to make sure is when you say bal, you do not take a breath. Just stay there for a second, second and a half, 2 seconds, and then straight into the next word. Now what we were talking about before is you may see on certain words a little scene written above a sword. Okay, and you'll find this in Surah number 2 verse 245, and this is a completely different scene. It's put sometimes above a sword and sometimes below a sword, and there's a rule in certain recitations where you can either read the sword as a scene or actually as a sword. So you must make sure you don't confuse that. That will normally be above the sword. The scene we were talking about will be completely above the word itself. Now the next one is these 3 dots. So may pause at one of the 3 dot symbols but not both. These always come in pairs. Let me put up an example. So this is Surah 2 verse 2. Okay, so what you see here is you've got 2 sets, because he's always, sorry, two sets of 3 dots, i.e. you have them in pairs, and they'll sit over 2 different words, and what it's indicating is that you have, well, effectively you've got 3 choices. You can choose not to stop on any of these, or any of these 2. You can choose to stop on the first, but then you cannot stop on the second one, or you can stop on the second one, but then you cannot stop on the first. So let's do this. So you could read this straight through. So this could be read